Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back to the class titled Strategic Communication for Sustainable Development. My name is Aradhana Malik. I teach at the Indian Institute of Technology in Kharagpur, West Bengal, India, and I am helping you with this course. In the previous classes, we talked about sustainability, communication, sustainable development, sustainability communication, and in the very last class, we discussed some sociological perspectives to sustainable development, to sustainability communication. In this class, we are going to talk about the psychological perspectives to sustainability communication. Okay, some psychological aspects of sustainability communication. Now, when we talk about the psychological aspects, we essentially discuss the problem of how we can influence and modify non-sustainable behavior patterns together with those factors on which they are based, such as values, attitudes, knowledge, motivation, habits, social norms, as well as the structural or contextual conditions of such behavior. Now, to give you an example, let's take the example of many of us are in the habit of throwing toffee wrappers, just candy wrappers on the ground when we have candy. Many of us don't want to take the trouble of looking for a dustbin and throwing candy wrappers in the dustbin. What does this do to the environment? And I'm going to take a hypothetical example. I don't have the exact figures, but approximate values. But just to show you the volume of non-biodegradable trash that this can generate. On the IIT campus, we have approximately 20 to 25,000 people live on the IIT campus. Let's assume that out of those 25,000 people, maybe 10,000 people like to have one or two pieces of candy every day. And out of those 10,000 people, maybe 5,000 people end up throwing candy wrappers on the ground. Tiny candy wrappers, just a toffee wrapper. So, I mean, that is the number we are talking about. 5,000 people throw candy wrappers on the ground. So, maybe and the other 5,000 find a dustbin and throw these candy wrappers into the dustbin. Now, these candy wrappers or toffee wrappers are non-biodegradable. They are made of material that does not get converted into it does not degenerate and form part of the soil. It's made of plastic or some such material. So, these 5,000 people throw on an average about 10 to 15,000 candy wrappers on the ground, and let's assume that these candy wrappers are not picked up by the people who sweep. Now, the attitude is that I'll throw it on the ground, the sweeper will come and the sweeper will clean it. Big deal. So what? Now, problem is that the candy wrapper is so small, it is so tiny that many times it just gets buried underneath the soil. You step on it, it gets dirty, nobody notices it, it sort of keeps getting buried under the soil and it doesn't degenerate. So, on an average, we are dumping about 10 to 15,000 candy wrappers on different parts of the IIT campus, just the IIT campus. So, maybe we are throwing them into the bushes, we are throwing them on the ground, we are not throwing them into the dustbins where they will be picked up from and disposed of in a manner that they will not harm the environment. Imagine the volume. If somebody tells you, if I come up and say, if you are a student here who is throwing a candy wrapper on the ground and I say, please don't do it, what will your reaction be? None of your business. Ma'am, the dustbin is so far away, I don't know where I can find a dustbin. Doesn't matter, the sweeper will come and sweep it and they will take care of it. It's not my responsibility, it's just a small candy wrapper. I cannot change your behavior, I cannot change the way you think about it. But if I explain this whole thing to you, I hope you're listening to this lecture very carefully. Maybe if you listen to this lecture, you think about your community. My community here is the IIT campus. I live here, I teach here, I work here, so this is my home. So wherever you are living, in your own colony, in your own school, college, workplace, just imagine the volumes that are being generated only in your own personal environment. Now, when I give you these numbers, doesn't some idea come to your mind? Don't you start feeling a little guilty for not taking care of your environment as you should? I haven't done anything. If I go and tell you, you will not believe me. But if I give you all these numbers and figures, and I ask you to just think of the volume that is being generated, does something not click? Does something not make more sense? That is what we are talking about in this lecture. It's about finding out what influences people's behaviors. Everybody from a number of disciplines want to talk about sustainability. We are all concerned about things. We all want to do the best we can for our environment. But what we are really not realizing is that in order to do something for the environment, we need to get the environment involved. We need to get the community involved. I can do only so much. I can inform my students, I can convince my students, I can convince my family, but that's where my nose ends and somebody else's begins. And I can just tell them, please don't do this. And the number of people who will listen to me will also be limited. But if by some way I can help the community understand what I'm saying and help the community internalize these principles and help the community make these principles a part of their culture, then the behaviors will change. Our behaviors are governed by what we see in our environments. Here in a place like India, we see people cleaning roads, we see people doing different things. So if I throw a wrapper on the ground, somebody will sweep it, somebody will put it into the dustbin. I've grown up with that notion, big deal, one toffee wrapper. But then when we think of these volumes, when we think of these implications, maybe it's not just one toffee wrapper, it's millions of tons of toffee wrappers that are going to harm my own earth, that is going to affect my quality of life maybe 20, 30, 40 years from now. Okay? So that is what we are talking about here. Okay. There are some concerns regarding the psychological aspects of sustainability communication. The discussions regarding sustainability are socially constructed. Who decides what is sustainable development? Who decides what sustainability communication is? Who decides what development means? Okay, so that is socially constructed. Then the social construction of the discourse or discussions regarding sustainability are contextual and constantly changing and rooted in different cultures. I am sitting here trying to explain the harmful effects of throwing toffee wrappers on the ground. It's a small thing, but it is not biodegradable. It will not be absorbed into the soil. You dig it out, 50 years from now you will still find the same toffee wrapper there. Okay, so I am talking to you, and if you have listened to me and if it has made some sort of a difference to how you think about things, if it has affected you in some small way, if it has resulted in you being careful the next time you throw wrappers of packaged foods on the ground instead of a dustbin, then I have done my job. And that is the social construction of reality. We are talking about social construction of the discourse. You say, I heard this and it seemed to make a little bit of sense to me. So you talk about one person who listens to me talks to two other people. They look at the lecture, and out of those two, even one person goes around and tells two other people, and slowly a number of people start believing in whatever is being said, and they try and convince more people. So the word spreads, and the community itself starts believing that we need to do whatever we can to prevent damage to our own environment. It's not somebody else's environment, it's the place where I'm living. It's my community, my home, my colony, my state, my country. So, so we take ownership, and that is how the word spreads. And so this is rooted in culture, it's contextual, it is constantly changing. One person's experience contributes to the change in the environment, and similarly that multiplied by the number of experiences that people have, multiplied by the number of people there are in the environment, is the quantum of change that takes place in the environment. The above mentioned discourse patterns are relatively new and as a result likely to evolve significantly. So, the discussions are new, what sustainability means, whether it's environmental, social, economic, what are we really talking about. If everyday behavior patterns are to be changed, it is important to consider group and subgroup specific constructions and mentalities. We are talking about constructions of reality, constructions of meaning. What do the subgroups believe? What do communities believe? What do families believe? So, how we do things, and that we have to first understand, and then how do we feel about changing our behavior, and then we need to convince the communities to change their behavior in order to preserve, in order to save their own environments. Okay. So, these are a few concerns that people dealing with the psychological impact or with how our mental makeup affects the environment. Okay. Challenges to the perception and evaluation of global environmental change. One is the immediacy of impact. Many of these, the first point, human beings lack the requisite sense organs for detecting many environmental conditions and changes. Our sense organs have limited capacities. My eyes can only see so much, my ears can only hear so much, my nose can only smell so much. But my eyes over the course of several decades have seen that the mountain range at the foothills of which we have our own home, family home, is now barren. It used to be a perennially white mountain range, the Dhauladhar mountains in Himachal Pradesh, and they are white. They used to be white, now they are grey. We rarely get to see a completely white mountain range, at some points during the winter. That is how I as a person have started understanding climate change, that yes, global warming is taking place because this mountain that used to be white all the time is no longer white. It's becoming very hot in my hometown where we barely needed fans. Now we need air conditioning. So, why is that? And then I start looking into the reasons, and then I start understanding, no, I need to at least save what I can. Okay, so our sense organs are not equipped to see these changes, they are slow, but then we understand these things from far away. For example, ozone depletion, I've read about it, I've understood it, but I don't see it, I don't feel it, I don't smell it, and that is one limitation. Okay, then climate, the time between cause and effect, slow release of pollutants into rivers and the death of fish. Some varieties of fish have completely disappeared. Okay, so I mean the cause and effect is so slow. Cutting trees in Himachal Pradesh, cutting trees in the environment has probably contributed to the Dhauladhar range not being white for so long, and has probably started contributing to the problems we have with water supply. So that kind of thing, that's what I'm talking about. It's not immediate. You'll see it, you'll see the effects over a period of time. Like I was telling you the last time, indiscriminate digging of bore wells, you will say, okay, today I have enough water, I've had enough water in my home for say 8, 10, 20 years. But slowly even that starts drying up. Why? Because the water table is going down. And why is it going down? Because so many people are drilling. So it's not one person, and it takes years, and then slowly we start realizing what is happening, and that is a concern. And the physical distance between the effect and the people. Now people who have the resources will be comfortable no matter what. So even if the effect is there, they'll say, okay, I'll buy my comfort from somewhere else. But the have-nots, the people who have limited resources, are more prone to, or have a higher chance of realizing this, the relationship between the cause and effect. because they are the ones who get affected first. Okay, so as long as we can afford our comfort, we don't really realize these problems in the environment. They are affecting us, but we are finding other ways to deal with them. But the people who do not have the means to deal with them are the ones who realize it. Okay, small damages to the environment or improvements are seen as a drop in the bucket in the growing stream accumulating over, and the growing stream accumulating over time is overlooked, as is the dissemination of new behavior patterns to larger groups. The example of the toffee wrappers. One toffee wrapper, what difference is it going to make? It does make a difference. It accumulates into tons of toffee wrappers over a period of time in one campus. Okay, the above confound the understanding and interactions between the systems dealing with the above and interfere with decisions that need to be taken to deal with emergencies and those that are required for the longer term. So all of these problems start confusing us. Where do I go? What do I do? Oh my God, so much of impact is happening on the environment, or so much of problems are happening in the environment. What do I need to do? Should I take immediate steps? Should I pace out my steps? How do I change my behavior? So, and who do I speak to? How do the systems deal with each other? It's not only the environment, it's also the economy, it's also the social fabric that's continuously changing. We are becoming more and more aware of what is happening around us. We talk to each other, but then we also need to draw a balance between being overly sensitive to what is going on and being realistic in changing our behavior patterns over a course of time. So we need to find out which of our decisions or which of our behaviors need to be changed immediately to deal with emergency situations, and which of our behaviors need to be spaced out, and which of our behaviors, because if we change our behavior because of an emergency, the likelihood of us losing that behavior when the emergency has been dealt with is very high. But if we make something a part of our daily routine, of our regular routine behavior patterns, the likelihood of those behavior patterns changing is reduced considerably. So all of these things are dealt with in this through this perspective. Okay, consequences of concerns regarding invisibility and remoteness of consequences. So of consequences, when we talk about consequences of the unsustainable behaviors. The first, remoteness, means the experiences or the results of indiscriminate, unsustainable, or behavior that does not support sustainability are too far away for us to even acknowledge them. So that is the invisibility, and we don't feel them, and remoteness is they are too far away. Invisibility is that they are so minute that we don't feel them. Immediate experience regarding consequences is likely to be replaced by interpersonal communication. Here is where communication comes in again. You'll say, okay, this is a class on communication. Where did communication vanish? This is where it is. Immediate experience, I can't have immediate experience, but now I am sitting here telling you that the Dhauladhar range is no longer white, and then maybe you'll go and you'll talk, you'll hear people from that region tell you the same thing, several people tell you the same thing. So you get information from people who have experienced things firsthand, and or media opinions. Somebody in that region covers it, maybe National Geographic will cover it one day, maybe they already have covered it, one of our Indian channels will cover it, and then they will share it with you, and then you realize, okay, maybe something is not right, and media shares this, thereby confounding how people feel about these issues. Again, confusion start. If you are not a direct stakeholder, if you haven't been affected directly, then you'll say, okay, why should I listen to it? Why should I pay attention? It's not affecting me, but maybe it is. How much can I do? How much should I do? Etc. Okay. As a result of the above, the ability to connect the cause to the effect is hampered. If you're not a first-hand experiencer, or if you haven't experienced things firsthand, then your ability to understand the relationship between the cause and effect is affected. Many times a medley of causes results in the effect. Many times a number of causes result in the effect. So, but we want to categorize the causes, so we start looking for one. Okay, is it global warming? Is it indiscriminate cutting of trees? Okay, let's start a policy, let's implement a policy that no more trees are to be cut down in the entire state of Himachal Pradesh. That's not it. What else is happening? Is it industries? Okay, we will pass a law that no more industries are to be set up in the state of Himachal Pradesh. That is also not it. We need to draw a balance, and a number of issues will be contributing to the problems that we are facing. So we need to understand the issues in entirety, but then our need to find a few scapegoat reasons, or a few reasons that we can pin the blame on, confounds our judgment of and understanding of these issues. Okay, some determinants of environmentally relevant sustainable behavior. How is our behavior influenced? One is knowledge. So what do we know? The second is individual factors, problems of perceptibility of environmental conditions and changes. I have told you this. Risk construction, how do we perceive risk? How do we understand risk? Understanding complex systems and the accompanying process of information processing. How do we understand the systems, the environmental systems, the social systems around us, and how do we process the information? Value orientation, what are our values, what are our our attitudes, our personality characteristics? Am I even inclined to listen to these signals coming to me from the environment or not? Habitual motives, for example, egocentrism, altruism, or social responsibility. I am what I am, I don't care what happens to the environment. That is egocentrism. Altruism is I will do everything in my capacity to help other people, even at the cost of my own well-being. And social responsibility is a balance. Yes, I have a responsibility to myself, I also have a responsibility to my community, and I need to draw a balance. So what are our motives like? What do we like to do? What are we inclined to do on a regular basis? And that's what influences how we perceive these things. And I'm sorry, I forgot to close the inverted commas, so I will do that as I'm talking to you. Temporary emotions like fear of failure or hope for success when pro-environmental actions are at stake. So you say, okay, I will do whatever I can, but then is it really going to make a difference? What if I fail? I'm going to join an activist group, I will go and try and change things in my environment, but what will I get out of it? What if my efforts fail? So these are fear of failure or hope for success when pro-environmental actions are at stake. Maybe I'll get a policy out. What if you don't get that policy out? So that will affect the way you think about these things. These are the individual factors. Then come interpersonal and social factors that affect how we change our behavior, whether we change it or not. Values. For example, orientation towards the principle of sustainability. What are our values? Are we even concerned as a society about sustainable development? The activists would say people in concrete jungles in big cities are not. I disagree with them. A lot of people are concerned, they don't know what to do about it. And they say, okay, well, if that was the case, why would they have built cities that are now concrete jungles? So that is what we are talking about. Orientation towards the principle of sustainability. The second one here is social, economic, political and cultural norms that are conveyed and filtered through the mass media. Mass media has an immense role to play in this whole ideation, in this whole process of understanding what sustainability is, what sustainable communication is. So what is the media telling us to do? Is the media propagating the idea that we need to conserve our environment, or is the media not really paying any attention to it? That is another question here. Social interaction and communication, impact of observation of others' behavior, social models, what do we see in our environment? How do we see people behaving? If I see my peers doing something, my tendency to go and do the same thing will be higher. We learn from each other, we see the value what others do brings to their environments, and that motivates us to also become responsible ourselves. So that is one. Influence on participation and learning through existing social networks. And how do we, that is another determinant. What do the social networks do? And do they encourage participation? Do they encourage learning? What kind of influence they have on participation and learning for the communities that they serve? Impact of conflict among interest groups on divergent perspectives and appraisals of a controversy. For example, environmental pollution versus industrialization. Where do we draw the line? How do we balance it? And that is one thing that we all deal with. When we are talking about environmentally relevant sustainable behavior, that affects how we perceive our environments and what we do as a society to deal with these problems in our environments. Okay, external structures and contexts, the opportunities we have for action. You may feel very strongly about things, but then sitting in your own home, you say, what can I do? Incentives for positive behavior. Even if I start throwing toffee wrappers in the dustbin, will I get an award for it? No. You will not get an award for throwing your toffee wrappers and packages in the dustbin. But the incentive that you will get is that you could motivate others to become socially responsible, but you're not getting an award, So, I mean, that kind of thing. So, what is the immediate benefit for me for indulging in positive behavior? And that is the external structure, external context that influences our behavior. Okay. Some strategies and instruments for promoting sustainable behavior. We have two types of strategies. We have cognitive strategies and we have behavioral strategies. So, cognitive strategies try to influence cognition and knowledge of environmental conditions and changes by working with information and educational approaches. And these are the characteristics of so these can be approached in various ways. We have the one example is the is Berlow's source message channel receiver model. Another is concrete feedback. Now there is antecedent strategy, etc. So all of these things have an impact on how we think, how we learn about sustainability. But maybe we will cover this, we will cover the strategies for promoting sustainable behavior and the principles of information and communication in the next class. But the bottom line here is sustainable development implies a continual process of changing human environment interactions, a process that must repeatedly focus on new objects that result from the interdependencies between ecological, economic, social and cultural conditions. Communication of and about sustainability in society must prepare the ground for the multiple and multidisciplinary use of strategies and interventions to move people towards sustainable lifestyles and behavior. We have to internalize these principles. We need to understand what sustainability is. We need to understand what sustainability will do for us in the future. We have to understand why we are having this discussion, and only then can we change our behaviors. Can we understand where we are going wrong and then change our behaviors appropriately. So, we will cover the strategies and the principles and the instruments in the next class, and we'll take the discussion from here. So, do think about the things that have been discussed, and thank you very much for listening.